Okay, so let's take a look at quantitative reasoning. Now, this subset, quantitative reasoning, is a relatively simple subset, and the content itself is quite simple. So the maths involved isn't too hard. However, when you add a time limit, it just becomes a whole lot more harder, and you end up panicking and you end up skipping quite a lot of questions, which is why we are going to take a look at mental maths tricks, which will just help speed up your calculation. So the mental maths tricks that I'm about to show you are the mental maths tricks I also applied during my UCAT exam, so hopefully you find them helpful. Okay, so multiplying by 4. So 4 multiplied by 345. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to do that, but here's the thing. What is the rule whenever you multiply any number by 4? Well, all numbers in the 4 times table are even. So any number you multiply by 4, you will get an even number. Now that fact, that point there will help you in terms of guessing the answer correctly. Now, if we have a look at the list of options we have, there is A, which is 3,313, B, 1,241, C, 110, and D, 1,380. And obviously, you can eliminate A and B because they are odd, and then you can eliminate C because it's too much of a low number, so therefore D is our answer. Now, I know, this example here is a relatively, to be honest, you won't even get this sort of example in the exam, but the thing that I'm trying to explain to you here is that in the exam, in the quantitative reasoning section, the questions are relatively wordy. Now, what you really need to do is be able to interpret the information, pick out the most important bits of information, with those bits of information formulate a simple equation such as 4 times 345. That honestly just makes it a whole lot easier. By rather than reading back over and over again the sentences, you really, as you read, you want to be formulating some sort of equation, something that you should be able to work out instantly. So that's one of my main tips for you. So obviously back to multiplying by 4. So sometimes it can help, but it will help mostly in terms of eliminating answers. So I found this relatively helpful. And obviously there are other, rules by multiplying by 6 and etc. and so on and so forth. So if you learn them, then it could possibly help you in terms of eliminating answers. So let's take a look at multiplying by 11. Now, this is honestly my favorite party trick. Honestly, it's just when I first time learned this, I was like, whoa. But okay, let's continue. So if a number is given to be multiplied by 11, you can use the following method to calculate the answer. So 18 multiplied by 11, how would you do that in your head? And honestly, you can do this within 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds. So how do you do it? Well, there is this formula you can use here, which for you mathematicians out there, you can use that formula. You'll be able to understand it. For those who have neglected maths like me since GCSEs, here's what you do. Okay, so you have 18 multiplied by 11. Here is what you do. You split up 18 into the 2 digits, 1 and 8. What's 8 plus 1? That's 9. Now, all you have to do is shove 9 between the 1 and the 8, and that is your answer. It's that simple. Let's have a go at another one. Let's calculate what's 13 times 11. Well, once again, we're going to split up the number 13 into its 2 digits, so 1 and 3. 1 plus 3 is 4. Now, 4 we're going to shove back in between the 1 and the 3 to make 143. It's that simple. It's honestly amazing. Okay, what about 34 multiplied by 11? Well, 34 we're going to split up into its 2 digits once again, so 3 and 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. Now shove 7 between the 3 and the 4 to give us 374. Honestly, this is amazing. Okay, so let's take a look at multiplying by 5. Now, what do we actually do when we multiply an even number with 5? Now, the first step is to divide by 2. So divide the even number by 2. Once you've done that, then just simply add a 0 on the end. It's that simple. So let's take a look at an example. So let's say we had 214 multiplied by 5. What do? We divide 214 by 2, which gives us 107. Then what do? We add a 0 on the end. So we have 107, and as a result of adding that 0 on the end, or you could just multiply by 10, same thing, we get 1070. So it's really simple. So this sort of calculation you can easily do in your head. Probably the only hardest bit is dividing by 2, but even then you should be able to do that in your head. Now, what if we are multiplying by an odd number? So the first step is to subtract 1. So we have an odd number multiplying by 5. Now we want to subtract 1 from that odd number, which as a result will give us an even number. Then divide by 2, and then with that answer add a 5 on the end. So rather than adding a 0, add a 5. So let's take a look at this example here. So 143 multiplied by 5. It's an odd number, so we're going to subtract 1, which gives us 142. Not difficult. Then we do 142 divided by 2, which gives us 71. So now we've halved it and we get 71. Then what? Then we just add a 5 on the end. So 715 is our answer. So obviously this is very simple, but quite effective as well. And you can do this very, very quickly in your head. So any number you multiply by 5, you really don't want to do it on the calculator, especially if you know you can do this in your head under 2 seconds. And literally, subconsciously, you will already add the 0 or the 5 on the end. The only bit which requires, mental effort is dividing by 2. And obviously, dividing by 2 is something that you should be able to do in your head anyway. So yeah, addition in your head. Now, I know this is relatively simple for some, but can you do 57 plus 27 in your head under 4 seconds? Now, if you can, that is absolutely amazing. If you can't, do not worry at all. Now, the reason why I ask you to do this in your head is because sometimes it's better to do these sort of simple equations in your head. Rather than pressing Ctrl+C, opening up the calculator, the number lock pad is not working, you're typing in the numbers, they're not typing in, or sometimes you're manually clicking the numbers and then it just takes up too much time, and then opening up the calculator, it just wastes so many seconds, which is why doing this in your head is a lot better. Now, how do you do this in your head? Now, I understand the equation itself is relatively basic. In the UCAT, you won't ever get a simple equation like this. You could possibly get it like this, but in terms of that it's hidden in the words. So you have to interpret the information and then formulate your equation, which will end up looking something like this. So 57 plus 27, what are the steps in terms of calculating this equation? So we are going to add the 5 and the 2 to make 7 tens. That's relatively simple. Then you are going to add 7 plus 7, so the units, which gives us 14. Now you have 70 and 14. Now, it shouldn't really be an issue to add them together, but if it is, no worries. All you have to do is separate the 14 into 10 and 4. Then add the 10 to 70 to give you 80. Then 80 plus the 4 gives you 84. This is what you want to replicate mentally. And if you can do this, then you're going on track. You'll save yourself a lot of time. Sometimes I understand that doing this in your head mentally but not being able to speak out loud can be an issue. Now here's the thing. During my UCAT exam, I noticed everyone had earbuds in. Now, the fact that everyone had earbuds in, I thought, you know what, I could take advantage of that and not wear my earbuds and kind of whisper to myself. So I asked the staff that were working there monitoring everyone in the UCAT center, I said, could I speak to myself? And they said, as long as you're not disturbing anyone else, sure, go ahead. So I did that, and I was kind of like whispering to myself, okay, 57 plus 27, okay, so add the 5 and 2, 7 plus 14, blah, 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 84. Okay, so it was pretty much like that. So if you can do that, honestly, that will also help as well. So, because I understand sometimes doing it in your head but not saying it out loud can be slightly difficult, but saying it out loud can just make it slightly more quicker. But as long as you're not disturbing anyone, that is totally fine. Okay, so 29 plus 39. Now, this one should be relatively simple. Now, all you have to do is, you can either do this two ways. So, number one, you can either add the tens, so 2 plus 3, which is 5, so 5 tens, which is 50, and then 9 plus 9, so adding up the units, which gives you 18, and then you do 50 plus 18, so if that's an issue, then you just split it up into 10 and 8, add the 10 to 50 to give you 60, then 60 plus the 8 gives you 68. Now, that was one way. The other way is, if you notice, 29 and 39, if you add 1 to each of them, it will go up to a nice and round number. So 29 will go up to 30 and 39 will go up to 40. 30 plus 40 equals 70, and then 70 minus the 2, so the 2 that you added on at the start, and that will give you 68 as well. So that is a lot quicker, but you have to recognize which is the quickest way of attempting to calculate this. Okay, so let me just quickly emphasize once again, I know the questions in the quantitative reasoning exam won't be like this, but they can be like this if you interpret the information in the paragraph and pick out certain pieces of information, so the numbers, and then formulate an equation which could possibly look something as simple as this. So building upon that skill is really important. So 45 plus 49, how do you do that? Well, as you can see here, so 4 plus 4, we're going to do the tens first. So we're going to add the tens, so 40 plus 40, which gives us 80, so this is 8 tens. So then you do 5 plus 9, which is 14. And then what you can do is then 14 plus 80, which is 94. Okay, so there are two ways going about this. So 39 plus 54. So number one, you can recognize that 39 can easily be rounded up to 40. So 39 plus 54. So we can round this up to 40 plus 54, which gives us 94, and then subtract the 1, which is 93. And the reason why we subtract the 1 is because initially we added the 1 right at the start. Now, the other method was, you know, adding up the tens and then the units separately. So let's add the 3 plus the 5 to give us 8, so 80, and then 9 plus 4, which gives us 13, and then 80 plus 13, which is 93. Either way you can do, whichever one is easier, but doing this mentally will help a lot. Okay, so what about 56 plus 23? Well, step 1, you can do 5 plus 2, which is 7, and then you can do 6 plus 3, which is 9, and then the answer is 79. So you literally do 70 plus 9. So that's pretty much it. Okay, so what about 65 plus 49? Well, you can see that 49 can easily round up to 50, and then add 60 to 50 to give 110, and then add the 5 to give 115, and then subtract the 1 to get 114, so the one that we rounded up from the right at the start. So basically the whole point of me doing this is just to help you, you know, see how you actually do these additions in your head. Okay, so now why don't you have a go? So pause the video and time yourself and see how quickly you can do these sums. Now the answers are 81 for the first one, 38 for the second one, 93 for the third equation, and 61 for the last equation. Now, it's totally up to you how you attempt to do these, whether you do add up the tens first, then the units, or do the rounding method, whichever one is suitable. But obviously, for questions like 19 plus 19, rounding would be a lot easier, because literally you just do 20 plus 20, which is 40, and then you just minus 2, which is 38. So as you can see, certain questions deserve to be rounded, and certain questions you can do, you know, using the tens and the units method.